Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect the jury is back in the courtroom. Welcome back, folks. I hope you had a good lunch. Great. At the end of the morning session, the prosecution was in the process of publishing People's Exhibit P-TR-1006. So, Mr. Brockler, you may resume publishing that exhibit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I will dim the lights.
What was your first experience with people dying? Someone dying?
I never had close contact with somebody dying.
Really?
No.
Never been to a funeral?
Yeah.
Tell me about whose funeral.
My grandma Helen's. There wasn't a casket or anything. It wasn't an open casket or a body anywhere.
So it was a memorial service as contrasted with a funeral where there's a casket.
Right.
How well did you know your grandmother?
Pretty well, yeah.
You were or were not around her as she became infirm or became ill and approached death?
I wasn't around her.
But you were close to her. Was she living nearby or did you see her often?
She lived in Santa Clarita, which is kind of north of LA, so close by.
How old were you the last time you saw her?
Oh, I don't remember when she died or when.
Little boy, adolescent, college?
No, I think it was undergraduate.
Okay. Had anybody close to you, friend, schoolmate, died before that?
Nope.
Had you lost any pets?
Well, natural causes, basically.
Tell me about that. What was that?
Had a Labrador named Zuby, and I think a Scottish Terrier named Wimby.
Zuby?
Zuby?
Zuby and Wimby?
Yeah.
Zuby and Wimby. Good. Tell me about the dog.
They're very loyal dogs. They like to play fetch.
You're picturing those dogs, aren't you?
Yeah.
How old are you in the picture?
Oh, I'm not in the picture because I'm seeing it through my eyes, I guess.
How old were you when you had the dogs, when the dogs were in your life?
I guess like 7 or 8.
And how did they leave you? How did they die?
Well, Zuby couldn't get up anymore because he had like bad hips. So we had the vet put him down. And then Wimby, I guess, got sick. I don't know what he got sick with, but we had to put him down too.
You were pretty young, but did you go to the vet when they put the dogs down?
No, they actually like brought the vet to the house.
Were you there when the vet euthanized the dog?
No.
How did you learn that the dogs had been put to sleep?
Oh, my parents told me.
Did they warn you that they were going to do that?
I don't remember a warning. It didn't seem sudden though because they kind of depreciated.
Would you have appreciated a warning?
Yeah, it couldn't hurt.
Do you remember how you felt when those dogs were put to sleep?
I was sad. I climbed a tree and cried.
Were they both put to sleep but close to the same time?
Close intervals, yeah. I was older by then, past 7 or 8. I was like early teens.
Early teen. They've been with you a long time.
Yeah.
Were those your first dogs?
Yeah. We had a third dog that we got later called Rocky. It was a poodle.
But Zippy and Wimby?
Yeah.
Zippy and Wimby, you sort of grew up with, it sounds like.
Yep.
Do you remember anything that your parents might have told you, even after they put the dogs to sleep, about the nature of dogs and the nature of people dying or dogs dying, getting old?
No, there's nothing surprising.
But you have a memory of climbing up in the tree and weeping and crying.
Yep.
What kind of tree was it?
Oh, I think it was a eucalyptus tree.
By yourself?
Yeah.
Can you ever tell anybody that story?
No.
Pretty personal story.
Yep.
And the family got another dog.
Yep.
Beg your pardon?
Yeah.
When you moved away, Riverside, Colorado, did you have a pet?
No.
Any other experiences with death, animals or people?
Well, my other grandma died too.
How close to her dying were you?
I was in San Diego and she was in Carmel, so like 8 hours away.
About how old were you?
I don't remember.
Little guy, teenager, college.
It was either high school or college. I don't remember exactly.
Do you remember how you learned about her passing?
Yeah, my mom said she had gotten sick after visiting her.
So you saw her.
I didn't see her. My mom had visited her.
Okay. Do you remember how you felt when she died?
I was sad.
Have some good memories with her? Or not?
Yeah. Christmases together.
Do you remember when you cried or not?
No, I didn't cry.
How about for the other grandmother?
No, I didn't cry for her either.
What do you make of the fact that you cried for the dogs and not for the grandmothers?
I was younger.
Anything else?
Nope.
By the way, I don't think it's unusual that a boy cries more for the dog than for grandmother.
Okay.
You were with the dog every day?
Pretty much, yeah.
Do you have a view? Well, let me go back some years when you were young, high school, college, or at the time that these people and the pets died. Did you have a view then about what happened after they died? What happens after death?
Just a dreamless sleep.
A dreamless sleep.
Yeah.
Did that apply to both the dogs and the grandmothers?
Yeah.
Where did you get that feeling of the dreamless sleep? Where do you suppose that idea came from?
I guess I just absorbed it.
I'm sorry?
I just absorbed it from my surroundings.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
I just thought that was the way things would work.
You don't recall it being something that Mom said or Dad said?
No, I think I came up with it on my own.
Did you ever have any thoughts about an afterlife for the dogs or for the grandmothers?
No, I don't believe in afterlife.
I mean, when you were a little kid?
Well, I knew about heaven and hell and stuff, but I didn't think it would apply.
Apply to?
That it wasn't the way things worked.
And how about now?
I still believe in the dreamless sleep.
Do you think much about it?
No, not really.
Think much about your own death?
Nope.
There was a possibility that you would have died in the shooting.
Then I wouldn't have to worry about anything else.
When the officers drove up, do you remember what their names are? Did anybody ever tell you what their names were?
I forget what their names are.
What was the circumstance in which the officers drove up or came to you after the shooting?
Well, they drove up behind the theater because everything happened behind the theater at that point. And they were looking in at theater 8 and they had their backs to me, even though I had a gun right next to me and stuff. So I didn't shoot them, but then they came towards me and I put my hands up and then they knew I wasn't police.
Why were you outside the theater and not inside the theater?
I left the theater at that point and went out the back.
Had you finished? Or were you getting ready to go back in?
No, at that point I just decided I was done and left.
So it wasn't that they interrupted you, you had decided that you were done.
No, I could have kept on shooting.
And that's really what I was asking. Without the police being there, what would have happened next?
Well, the magazine jammed, so my main weapon malfunctioned.
But you had 3 others.
I had 2 others on me, and I would have had to reload the shotgun, which takes so much time. So essentially, I only had the one handgun.
So, absent the police, what would have happened?
If there were no police,
If the cops hadn't come up to you, what would you have been doing?
they didn't come up to me. I left the theater, and then they appeared.
You understand? You have left the theater, you're outside the theater door, and the police
Are present.
don't see you, aren't present.
They are present.
No, but if they were not, what would have happened next?
I would have driven away.
Okay,
I don't know where I would have driven though.
okay, so you were,
I didn't have a plan exactly.
either way, you were finished with the inside of the theater. You weren't
Gonna go back
going to
in.
go back in. Okay, okay. You would have somehow driven away. You didn't have a plan.
After shooting in the theater, I didn't have a plan of whether to die or not, or to drive away, or where I would go. I kind of left that all up to spur of the moment.
What do you make of that? And here's what I mean. The planning for what went on in the theater was
Meticulous.
I'm sorry?
Meticulous.
Meticulous, good word. The planning for what would happen afterward,
Was absent, completely absent.
non-existent. It's like life stops with the theater.
Yep. And that was definitely a possibility.
A possibility, but only a possibility, not a
Certainty.
So what I'm asking is, Looking back, what do you think about the fact that all planning ended with the shooting at the theater? Didn't even include getting the car and driving away, except that you had some road stars and some first aid stuff.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I think I didn't think it through very well then.
But you're A, a smart guy, and B, an extreme planner.
Right.
It seems illogical that you wouldn't think it through. And yet, I believe you when you say you didn't think it through. So, what is it that causes a smart guy and extreme planner not to think it through beyond the shootings?
Because I kind of figured my life would end at the shootings.
Two ways for your life to end, literally and figuratively.
Both ways, yeah.
Sounds like you had no plan, no hope, no wish for things to go further, for your life to go further.
Except the basic biological instinct to survive.
But in your planning, a crook, a criminal,
Yeah.
would figure out where he was going to live, where he was going to get food, where he was going to get money, things like that.
All that was going to be determined for me, so I didn't have to plan anything out. So I would go to jail or I would die, and then things would take their own course.
Was there any third possibility, jail or die? Was there any third possibility?
Well, there's the third possibility of getting away, but I didn't consider that. I consider that negligent or nil.
No.
Yeah.
And we're looking back.
I'm not sure. Yes. And for the record, the exhibit stopped publishing or playing all of a sudden. And Mr. Bruckler, do you think you can get it back?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay.
I think that the not working.
Blame the laptop. That's what I say.
Really, I'm blaming Bill Gates. Are we good? Governor, I think we're good.
At what point do you think you realized that, or do you think that was a fact in your plan?
I think it was early on at least, because I did a status posting on my match.com and adultfriendfinder.com. Will you visit me in prison? So I kind of knew at that point I would either go to prison or die, or go to prison and die.
So that posting wasn't just a thought or random or for effect. That posting was anticipating,
The consequences.
rather specifically anticipating.
Yeah.
That's the way you remember it.
Yep.
Roughly when did that posting take place? About
I have no idea.
how long before the shooting? A week before, a few days before?
It could have been as long as a month before, but I don't think so.
We're good on time. We're doing fine. There were things that could have stopped the chain of events.
Yeah.
You mentioned, for example, if the FBI had stopped you from going into the theater.
Right.
I think we talked about that yesterday, the day before. As maybe even a wish that that would happen. Or no, or am I misunderstanding?
Maybe a hope, I guess.
Can you describe for me, help me understand, that you hoped the FBI might stop you, or part of you did,
Right.
but the person who was perfectly capable physically of stopping, namely you, didn't stop.
Well, I had a purpose to fulfill.
But it would have been okay with you, in fact, you hoped it, if somebody else stopped your purpose. Namely the FBI.
Yeah. That's also why I think I went to the psychiatrist in the first place and told him about the homicidal thoughts.
Okay. It sort of sounds like there were two parts of you going on. One part that wanted to proceed and the other part that didn't. Does that make sense?
Yes, there's like internal conflict.
Those are big words, psychobabble crap.
Okay.
But it sounds like there were two parts of you, one that wanted to proceed and one that didn't.
Yeah.
Or am I if I'm misexplaining it, then please correct me.
Well, one I wanted to be fixed, to have be normal, and the other was to carry out routine.
Was the you that you thought wasn't normal, was that the thing that was creating the mission? Or was that the normal you, the thing that was creating the mission?
I don't think there is a normal me. There's just,
You don't think there's any part of you that's normal?
no, not like that. I just figure myself as abnormal.
The going to see seeking help or seeking something. Did that have to do you think now, with stopping you, one way or another? Or with fixing you, or with something else?
Yeah, with treating me.
What was, if you can remember, what was the thought? What was the hope in your mind?
I'd get the drugs and then I'd be better.
What ended up happening?
I got the drugs and it abolished my anxiety, my kind of fear of other people, and kind of maybe even facilitated it.
So when you got the drugs,
Yeah.
your anxiety around other people decreased?
Yeah, that was one of the main reasons. I'd also told her why I came to see her was to reduce anxiety.
Okay. But coming down to what happened, when you got the drugs, and I'm just saying what you said, I want to be sure that it was accurate and complete in my mind. The anxiety with people decreased. It was easier to be around people. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. Did it change the way you felt about the people, that it was now easier to be around?
I just didn't fear them.
I'm sorry?
I didn't fear them.
The last couple of days we've talked about you hating. Your phrase was, like you hate broccoli.
Yeah.
Not a, I want to hurt you hate, but a,
I want to get away.
I want to avoid you.
Yeah.
Is that, that's what I heard?
That's right.
Okay, okay. So I guess that makes me ask, what did the shootings have to do, if anything, with hating people?
Just that they make me anxious, and because they make me anxious, I hate them.
You described that hatred as wanting to avoid, because they make me anxious, I want to avoid them.
Right.
And you were pretty careful, I think, to say you did not mean because they make me anxious, I'm mad at them and I want to kill them.
No, because I wasn't mad at anybody in the theater.
Okay. And what I'm trying to put together is, and it may not go together, the shooting of the people in theater doesn't sound like it has anything to do with I want to avoid people. I hate broccoli, I want to avoid it. I hate people and I want to avoid them. That doesn't lead in my simple mind to a situation where you kill people. Now, this was not a simple situation, I understand.
Right. But if you kill them, then you're not dealing with them. You're avoiding them.
On the other hand, you don't have to go to the theater in the first place.
Right.
You can. There are other ways to avoid them besides killing them.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said earlier that the killing had to do with assuming some of their value.
Right.
Okay. Do the two things go together, or are they somehow put together?
They're completely different reasons.
Okay. Did they coexist in the killing, or was the hating like broccoli a separate thing and didn't have to do with the killing? Or do you?
I don't think it had much to do with the killing.
Okay. And by the way, I want you to know, and whoever looks at the tape tonight, that we're talking about something that was 2 years ago,
Right.
when you were in a very different state of mind, at least in some ways, than you are today. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. The things that might have helped, you called the drugs, and maybe there were other things that might have helped. There were 2 or 3 kinds that were tried, as I recall, right?
Clonazepam, propranolol, and confinement, sertraline.
Did you take those things as prescribed?
As directed, yeah.
Okay. And what was the result? You already told me that your avoidance of people went down, decreased.
Right.
Anything else happen with regard to the medications?
No, not really.
Were there any problems with the medications?
There was with the clonazepam, it had side effects.
What side effects did it have that you recall?
Maybe like tired, I think, and unable to focus.
So did you not take it because it made you tired and unable to focus?
Well, I took it for about a week, and then once I saw my psychiatrist in Benton, then I didn't. Then she said to stop taking it, so I stopped.
Okay. You stopped seeing them at some point. I'm trying to think of the order of the appointments. You kept every appointment that was made, as I recall.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the last appointment, you communicated in some way that this was going to be the last.
This was the last one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as I recall, even left a little early. This is it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Why did you make that your last appointment?
I don't know why.
If there was a wish to fix you or to, on the one hand, fix things, fix your mind, and on the other hand, prevent the mission from taking place, prevent the track that things were on, to stop them.
That kind of overruled the treatment.
It overruled the treatment.
Yeah.
Pretty strong force.
Yep.
Where does such a strong force come from?
I don't know. It just took hold of my mind.
I'm sorry?
It took hold of my mind.
Took hold of your mind. There are some pretty strong forces that take hold of people's minds sometimes. The impulse to drink for alcoholics, to shoot up for heroin addicts, to do other things.
Yep.
Any thoughts about why this took such irrevocable hold of your mind, such unbeatable hold of your mind?
I don't know why it dominated, but it did.
But it did, essentially.
Yeah.
Did you think of any other ways to stop it?
Well, at that point, I was more concerned with going through with it than stopping it.
You're going through with it. The picture in your mind was that everything was going to end with the mission. That is, you didn't plan beyond the mission. It sounds as if, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, that nothing existed for you of import beyond the mission.
Right.
Did you see anything about the mission that said it was a wrong thing to do?
I'm not sure.
Seems like a pretty simple question.
Well, I knew it was legally wrong because you get punished for killing people.
Yeah. Thinking more about inside you, you're a person going through life at that point. You haven't been arrested at that point. thinking you may well be arrested or maybe killed. No matter what you do, if I'm thinking right about the way you were thinking, life is going to end one of two ways. You're going to be killed or you're going to be put in prison arrested. But between here and those things, thinking back on July 1st, 5th, 19th, 20th, there are people that are going to be killed and wounded.
Right.
Is there anything wrong with doing that in your state at that time?
I just consider them numbers, really, not people.
How's that?
Well, I consider that it was going to be a number of people that died, kind of in conglomerate mass or something.
But as you went into the theater, you saw individual people buying tickets, getting popcorn.
No, I didn't look at any of the people.
You must have, because you didn't bump into them. You looked at them one way.
Well, I didn't single them out as individuals.
As you drove to the theater, you didn't go out of your way to hit pedestrians or run over dogs.
I was concentrating on getting to the theater without getting pulled over.
You come back to the concept of the things that lay at that point between you and dying or being arrested, those two things. Did it ever cross your mind that you were going to hurt people?
Not real people, kind of. It was just kind of amorphous people. People are going to get hurt, not John Doe or whatever.
If a little old lady had crossed the street in front of you on the way to the theater, would you have put on your mask?
I would have avoided.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why?
Because
What would have gone into avoiding that person?
that would have interfered with me carrying out the plan and going to the theater.
And that's the only reason you would have avoided hitting the little old lady?
Plus, that's kind of personal, hitting a little old lady with your car.
You don't know her. Never saw her before in your life. You don't know her name.
Okay, I guess it's not personal then.
I'm sorry?
It's not personal then.
So once again, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but I'd like an answer. The only reason you wouldn't hit the little old lady is that it might interfere with your getting to the theater for your mission.
Well, and I didn't plan on hitting the old lady. It would have been a surprise.
And that's why this is a kind of a hypothetical question. It doesn't really exist. But it may give us some insight into the way you were thinking. You are not saying, one of the things you're not saying, and perhaps that's saying something, you're not saying that that's the only reason you wouldn't have hit the little old lady.
Right, I'm saying there's another reason.
And the other reason is
I didn't plan to hit an old lady. I wasn't prepared for it. So it would have come as a kind of a shock.
And so the two reasons that you wouldn't have hit the old lady, is that A, it would have interfered with the mission, and some visceral reaction to an unplanned situation,
That sounds about right.
not to hit the lower line.
Yeah.
The people who were in the theater, how do you feel about them now?
I don't know.
Okay.
They're gonna make me know them though.
At the trial, you mean?
Yeah.
I expect so. Let me go back to just after the shootings happened, and the day or two after the shootings happened.
Okay.
Wait, did you say okay?
Oh, I said okay.
Okay. Did you have any thoughts about the victims, the people that were shot, etc.?
No, I just heard the numbers. It was like over 50 wounded and 12 died.
What came to mind as you heard the numbers?
It was new information. I didn't know that while I was in the theater.
Any feelings come to mind? Any pictures or feelings come to mind as you got that information?
Just that I was worth 12 more people than I was before.
Do the wounded count in your worth in that way of thinking about things, or no?
I only count fatalities.
Okay. So is there a difference in the way you think about the wounded and the way you think about the deceased, about the dead?
Yes.
And what are the two ways that you think of it?
What are the two?
What are the two ways? What are the ways you think about the dead versus the way you think about the wounded?
Well, the dead can't be repaired or come back to life or be normal again. So it's kind of irreversible.
And what I heard you say was that accrues to something positive for you.
Right.
What about the wounded?
They're like collateral damage, I guess.
Any thoughts about them after the event?
I regret they had to be wounded.
In what sense do you regret that? Excuse me. In what sense? Well, I guess what do you mean by I regret that they had to be wounded?
Rather than like the bullets just missing them or something.
Do you think there was any chance at all that the bullets would just miss people unless they were destined to die?
I think it was statistical. You shoot enough bullets into a crowd, you're going to hit somebody.
Can you help me understand the regret that you felt that they had to be wounded?
Well, they get debilitated and like some get paralyzed or lose limbs. And like it's too bad that couldn't have been avoided.
Is your view that it couldn't be avoided?
It couldn't be avoided because I'm basically shooting blind into this crowd of people, so.
But that's the way you set it up.
Right. So it couldn't be avoided
But that's the way you set it up.
So if I had set it up differently and like aimed specifically for the people, I guess it could have been different.
You set it up so that people would be wounded, not killed. Does that make sense?
Not intentionally, I set it up so that people would die.
How is it not intentional that you set up a situation, you planned it meticulously, to use your word, that you wouldn't be able to see well or aim well.
Right, so
Which is the way that people
keep
get
it
wounded.
impersonal.
Which is the way that people get wounded instead of killed. Instead of all killed.
So I didn't know a way to make it impersonal and still be able to kill them.
But once again, you're a smart guy. And you plan meticulously. I think of situations, and it's a hypothetical thought, of course, of snipers. They get very, very good at what they do. They tend to kill rather than wound.
Right, well, as I said, my aim wasn't that great. So I couldn't really do a sniper.
Okay, we can pick a different way to do it. My point is that intellectually, your argument seems to be failing to me. That people got wounded because of the way you set it up.
Right, that's true. People got wounded.
Because of the way you set it up.
Yes, because of the way, the nature.
The people who were killed, that, as I understand it, there's no regret or less regret for the ones that were killed because you accrued their value. At least that's the way you felt at that time. Is that right?
Right.
Did you have any thought about those that they left behind?
Also collateral damage.
The argument begins to sound pretty quickly like the ends justify the means. Makes sense?
Yeah.
If that's not a reasonable way to think about it, I really would like to hear what your view of it was at that time, not necessarily looking back at it, but what your view was at that time and before the shootings. That there was an awareness, at least intellectual awareness, it seems to me, of lots of collateral damage.
All right.
But the end justified the means. Is that a reasonable way of thinking about it or not?
There was no way to avoid it. And with that plan.
With that plan, there was no
Yes.
way to avoid it.
And I was already dedicated to the plan.
What do you suppose locked you into that plan?
Just that it was realistic and it could be done.
But the collateral damage was part of the realistic part. That was going to happen.
Oh, I didn't figure the collateral damage had anything to do with me
Really?
after the crime. It wouldn't matter.
To you or to anybody?
To me,
Would it matter to somebody else?
certainly the people who were injured, yeah.
And how about to the people who were family members of the people who died?
Yeah, them too.
Okay. Did those folks come to mind at all as you were planning?
No.
Even as it's logical that this will happen, but the end justifies the means.
There was no fear of consequences.
I'm sorry?
There was no fear of consequences.
Was there any awareness of consequences?
Yes.
Okay. I'm curious as to how you made the awareness of consequences evolve into a lack of fear or concern about the consequences.
I don't understand the question.
I don't think you're a cruel guy.
Okay, I don't either.
Okay. I don't think you're a cruel guy. You don't go out and, in the lab you may sacrifice rats, okay?
Right.
But you don't go out and get little old ladies and you cry when your dog dies. You don't go and torture animals or anything like that. I don't think you're a cruel guy.
Okay.
But somehow, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, the awareness that other people would be badly hurt was not enough to stop the mission. And it sounds as if you're telling me that the awareness that they would be hurt somehow became a lack of concern about the consequences to them or anybody else.
Right.
Can you help me with how that,
Why that is the way it is.
and why is sort of an odd question. Sometimes why is not the right question.
Okay.
But it may be in this case. I'm wondering about the process. How does it go from there are going to be many people hurt in lots of different ways? How does it move from, okay, that's going to happen, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I have no concern for the consequences? Because I think in general, you do have concern for at least many other people.
Right, so that's all kind of appearing now that it's after the fact that it's happened. But before it happened, I wasn't counting on dealing with any of it because I could have died.
And you're bringing another part into it that may be real important. You said not dealing with it. I'm not remembering your exact words, but not dealing with the consequences.
Right. So now I have to deal with the consequences.
Before the shootings,
I didn't think ahead, so I wouldn't have to deal with the consequences.
right after the shooting, were you concerned with the wounded or whether anybody was going to get hurt at the apartment?
I inquired if a child was hurt because I saw a sign that said like child division homicide or something.
As you came into the Aurora?
Yeah, I inquired with the investigators.
And did anybody tell you one way or the other whether a child was hurt?
No, they were evasive. But I put it together
What did you put together?
that a child was killed the next day, I think.
How did you react at that time when you put that together?
That I tried to minimize child fatalities by choosing midnight and PG-13 movie.
Okay, so it would be grown-ups at that showing of that particular movie, is that what you're saying?
That was what was intended, yeah. So it wouldn't be like,
Once you learned that a child was killed, that you had killed a child,
yeah, it was remorseful.
tell me more. Remorseful is 3 syllables. Tell me more in 1 syllable words or so. How you felt.
That I was sad that a child had died.
Did you think much about it?
Yeah.
Do you still think much about it?
I don't know how it could have been avoided though, other than changing the plan into something else.
If you had known that a child was going to be killed, would you have changed the plans, do you think?
No, I think I would have still carried them out.
If you had known that lots of children were going to be hurt, dozens of children were going to be hurt,
Then I'd have to change the plan to make it impersonal and not with children.
and you're aware that dozens of children were hurt,
I'm not aware of that. I didn't know dozens of children were.
I'm sorry.
I'm not aware of that.
Once again, you're a smart guy. You think about the plan meticulously,
Right,
but not much about the consequences of the plan.
right.
What about the children of people who are killed? Are they hurt?
I didn't consider family and friends of the deceased or the wounded.
What do you think now? Are the children hurt when their parents are killed?
Yep.
Are they hurt when their parents are wounded?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So at least in that sense, dozens of children were hurt.
Indirectly.
The children are still hurt.
Yeah.
Does that make you feel anything as we talk?
Not so great.
Tell me a little more. What do you mean it's okay?
Well, it wasn't my intention to kill children or leave them parentless or like that stuff.
Soon after the shootings, days, weeks, did you think that there were some children? Did it occur to you that there were some children who were parentless?
Who or what?
Who were parentless? Who had lost one or both parents?
No, I never took that perspective.
Did it ever cross your mind, other than taking the perspective, did it ever cross your mind that there
No.
were children who now had lost a parent?
I'd only considered the children who'd been directly hurt.
But as you're approaching the mission, approaching the shooting, it sounds as if it didn't occur to you. One way or another, it did not occur to you that some of the people that were going to be killed would be parents.
No, didn't occur to me.
You've talked about remorse or regret. You've used the word a couple of times. Almost, and I'm not sure of the feeling that goes into the words. Can you help me understand the feeling that goes into the words remorse or regret as you're using them the last couple of days with me?
That's kind of hard because they are the descriptors of the feeling.
What are some other ways to describe the feelings that you have about remorse and regret? If you haven't, I'm not assuming.
I don't know.
Do you have those feelings?
Sometimes.
When did they come to you? When did those feelings come?
Just when I'm alone in my cell.
That's all on. You're alone a lot.
Right.
Any particular time of the day or night that those feelings come to you?
Not really, no.
Sometimes make it hard to sleep, for example.
No.
Was there any time, you've been in jail for a couple of years now, was there any time, early, middle, late, that the feelings were more or less, or interfered more or less with you?
They were more right after, or shortly after.
Tell me what that was like. I'm interested in what that was like.
I don't know what to tell you.
Just tell me what it was like. What was it like soon after the shooting? What'd you feel like?
Kind of a now what am I going to do situation.
Now what am I, in what context, now what am I going to do?
Right.
But I don't understand quite what you mean. Now what am I going to do?
That's kind of how I felt.
Meaning, what am I going to do for lunch, or what am I going to do the rest of my life? Or
Yeah, with in the long term, I guess.
Anything else about the way you felt about remorse or regret? what are the best words to use? The value, the power that they have, that accrues to you. What's the best word to use? What comes to you as a result of their dying?
Their value.
Their value. Can you describe to me what value means in that sense?
Just what they're worth.
What do you mean they're worth?
I don't know how else to explain it.
Lots of kinds of worth. What kind of worth do you mean?
Their worth in totality.
Earning potential? Value of the chemicals that make up their bodies? What do you mean?
Just their value as a human being.
Okay. Their value as a human being. Does that bring up any thoughts or pictures of what one's value as a human being means, or what it is?
I just designated an arbitrary value of like 1 to each person.
I want to ask one what?
1 value unit. I don't know.
Is a value unit a big thing? Really, really significant? Or is a value unit a little thing and it takes lots of them to make up something significant?
1 is significant enough.
1 is significant enough. And you had 12.
Right.
Okay. Their value as a human being. Does that seem to jive with your effort to not see them as human beings? Or does that
Not see them as individuals, like personally individuals.
I don't mean to be playing games with you, but you did see them as human beings because that's their value.
Right, their value as a human being. So, as a human being, they have this value, and I take that value.
Was it successful?
Yes.
In what way for you was it successful?
I increased my self-worth, and I didn't have to die.
Okay. Can you talk to me about how your self-worth is increased? In what way you see that?
Well, it's at a value of 13.
In what way then are you enhanced?
I'm worth 13, whereas a normal person's worth 1. Or, yeah.
Do you feel that value 13 or 12 times more than you did before?
Theoretically, yes.
Theoretically, how about really?
Well, it's only theoretical in nature, so.
No, it's pretty real in nature. How about really? What do you feel in terms of the feeling of increase in you and your worth?
Right, my worth is a lot more.
And what do you feel is more? What does that feel like to be more?
Just that I feel better than before.
Okay. Many, many times better, lots and lots better, or incrementally better?
Incrementally.
Can you put your finger on any of the things that trouble you less, for example, or that you do better now than you did before July 20th?
You're kind of getting at what the value actually is.
Sure.
See, it's just in value.
Otherwise, it's just keeping score. I'm asking you, what is it that is better about you, in your view, or that feels better about you?
Then I didn't have to suicide.
Okay. Do you sometimes think about suicide since the killings or not?
Yes.
A lot or just a little?
A lot.
Every day?
Maybe once a week.
So is that better or not better or the same as it was before the killing?
My environment's worse, so I'd say it's about the same.
Before the killings, you weren't aware of feeling suicidal. That's what you said.
I hadn't transferred them yet.
You weren't aware of feeling suicidal. That's what you said. Did I misunderstand it, or did you misspeak?
When I would feel suicidal, I would transfer that into homicide.
Actually, you were pretty specific that you never felt suicidal.
Because I would transfer.
So what you felt was homicidal, and you deduced that the homicidal was preventing the suicidal feelings.
Right.
Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And now you do feel suicidal, wanting to hurt yourself when you kill yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, because I've already done the homicidal.
How strongly do the suicidal feelings get sometimes? What's the worst they get?
Just they get bad.
And what's bad? How can you explain to me what bad is? How bad is it?
Whereas I'm contemplating a plan to suicide or not.
Have you tried it?
Yes and no, I guess.
Tell me about the yes part.
I was trying to bang my head open in the cell. They'd had to put me in the hole or suicide watch. They had to put me in suicide watch. And I was still banging my head on the cell, like doors and stuff.
That was the day that you fell backwards off your bunk.
Right.
Okay. And did you also banged your head against the wall on that day?
In the suicide watch, yeah.
It is okay. I've seen both those cells, as you know, when I was there a week or two ago.
Okay.
How many times did you fall backward or
Only twice. They took me to suicide watch on the second time.
Do you remember the thoughts you were having at that time when you were thinking about it or doing it? Falling backward from your...
I don't know why I was falling backward.
Now, do you remember the thoughts you were having? What you were thinking about?
No, I don't remember.
Do you remember climbing up on the bunk?
Yeah, and falling backwards.
Let's take it a little at a time. You climbed up on the bunk. You remember standing on the bunk?
Yes.
I remember seeing you in one of the cell videos standing on the bunk.
Okay.
And you're looking kind of straight ahead, I guess. What happens next? Kind of slow motion, what happens next?
I just lean back and then fall.
What did you think might happen, or what were your thoughts then about what might happen when you fell back?
I don't know what I was thinking.
And they put you in the hole.
Yep.
You should work. It's a pretty crappy place to be.
Yeah, bad environment.
Very bad environment. Barbaric environment.
Yep.
Tell me about being there.
first off, I couldn't see because I didn't have my contacts, and people had like scratched a bunch of stuff into the walls, and I started interpreting them as messages.
Do you remember what was scratched at the walls or what your interpretation was at that time?
Well, someone scratched like Ethiopia or something. I thought that was kind of applicable.
Applicable?
Applicable.
In what way?
And that it was kind of an Ethiopian environment.
Okay. And I didn't realize you didn't have your contacts at the time. But you couldn't see. Or you couldn't see very well.
Couldn't see very far.
Before that, in the days before this happened, had you been getting your contacts regularly and able to wear them?
Yeah, but I had them out because I was going to go to sleep. But then I did the head.
What time of day was it that
It was at night.
Okay, it was at night, so that's why you had them out.
Yep.
Did you ask for your contacts?
No,
Or glasses or something?
I figured there wasn't much to see anyway.
That must have made it even worse,
I guess.
not being able to see. At some point they came in and strapped you to a chair and started an IV.
One IV and took me to Denver Health.
I'd like to hear more about that, but I think we're going to have to stop for a minute.
Okay.
Sounds like a very, once again, crappy experience.
Yep.
Once again, anything that you want me to leave with? Any thoughts you want me to leave with?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks for talking with me again. I don't see more about that talk, okay?
All right.
Okay.
I'm going to turn the lights back on. The record should reflect that the prosecution just finished publishing People's Exhibit P-TR-1006. Mr. Bruckler, do you have some questions now, or do you want to go on to the next segment?
Sir, I do have some questions.
All right, approximately how long do you think?
15-ish or so minutes, Your Honor.
All right, that's fine. Why don't we push through and do that before the break? Doctor, I remind you that you're still under oath. And members of the jury, I remind you that the court has admitted this testimony only for a limited purpose. You may consider this testimony only as to the issues raised by the defendant's plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. You shall not consider this evidence for any other purpose. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Doctor, I want to start with sort of where we ended off in that video, and then we'll work our way through the rest. There is, in this segment, significant discussion about this theory that the defendant has of increasing his self-worth. Tell us about that, what you discovered, and how it impacted your view of his capacity to know right from wrong under the limits that the court has described.
Mr. Holmes talks rather consistently to different people and to me in the video, talks rather consistently about believing that he can take a point of value for each person that he killed. He makes it clear, I don't think in this video, but he does it in a future one, that that's his own idea. If one thinks that he truly believes this, and I see no reason that he doesn't truly believe it, I believe him, then that might be considered a delusion, or it might be considered a belief. I've wrestled with both ways of that, and I can kind of accept it, one as a philosophy, or two as a delusion that is a psychiatric condition. He makes it clear that the point that he gets for killing each person is vague and abstract. It doesn't give him magical powers. It doesn't bestow anything particular on him except a point. He likes the point. He tells us that he likes the point, but he doesn't see any specific advantage to it except that it makes him feel good. And it consistently makes him feel good. One of the things that we heard is that he was willing and continues to say at the point of the interview that he was willing back in July 2012 to trade a person's life for that point and to create lots of injuries in other people to get each one of those points. Those are my thoughts about it.
Based on what you've discussed and discovered with the defendant, would it be accurate that he would feel better the more people he killed?
That's the inference. He said, I don't think in this segment, but will in other segments, that he expected to kill some number of people, and that if he killed, I think he said 3, that would make it worthwhile. Glad he killed 12. He kind of voluntarily or semi-voluntarily stopped the killing when he might have gone back in or might have shot someone else, such as a policeman. But at some point he said, it's over, to himself. And there's an implication that there was some relief felt by him when that was over. That is the end of a task. That's assumption on my part. I'm not sure exactly whether that's responsive to you.
When he heads into the theater the night of the 19th, is it your conclusion that he believes he will feel increasingly better the more people he murders?
Objection, leading.
Well, he's following up on what the doctor just said, so overruled.
Okay. I'm not sure that he and I talked about his feelings in that regard when he first went into the theater. I think it's reasonable to infer or assume that he believed that each person he killed was going to bring him a point which would make him feel better. That's among the 2 or 3 reasons that he was there.
Look, let me follow up then, because one of the things that he tells you in this segment is that he regrets the people that were injured, the collateral damage, and wishes that the bullets had just simply missed them. Does that match up with your conversation with him about the points he gets from killing people?
It's pretty clear to me that he didn't care, or at least he says that 2 years before we were talking, he didn't care about what he termed collateral damage, that he did what was necessary to get the points. He modifies that somewhat when he talks about if he'd known children were going to be injured. And then, as you notice, we went into the idea, I believe a true idea, that many, many children were injured one way or another. But I think the bottom line is whatever regret he had, and I can't know what was in his heart at any particular time, but whatever regret he had, he makes it clear that getting the points, killing the people, was worth it.
Listen, at one point you ask him, did his ends of wanting to feel better and get these points for killing people, did they justify the means that he used? And he says yes. And my question to you is, doesn't that just automatically mean that he didn't know right from wrong under the context that the court has advised this jury?
No, it doesn't mean to me that he didn't know or was not capable of knowing.
Why not?
If I understand your question
Yes, sir.
correctly.
Yes, sir.
I see 2 possibilities. One is that there was very little mental illness there that was relevant to the shootings, in which case it seems reasonable to me to look at it as he decided to trade people's lives and all the injuries around it for feeling better. Looked at in a slightly different way, if you think that the thoughts of the points, etc., are a delusion, and then you accept a bit more presence of mental illness at the time, it still says to me that even within some delusion he would feel better. That's not an equitable trade. It's not a trade that he was still aware that he was trading people's lives and injuries in order to feel better. Either way you cut it, that's my view.
In this segment or any other thereafter, did you ever find any, and in fact in discovery, did you find any evidence that this guy says that he was justified and that others would agree he was justified in murdering people?
He says he was justified because he feels better, or because he didn't have to kill himself, and he got the points. When I particularly asked him in one of the future segments about whether other people would agree, and asked him in various ways, he said they would agree only if they happen to think the way I do, or something like that. He was clear that this is his way of viewing the world, and it doesn't have to be anybody else's way of viewing the world.
That it wasn't some universal truth he discovered?
No.
Leading.
Sustained.
Excuse me.
You spent some time at the beginning of this segment, Doctor, going into some significant detail with him about him booby-trapping his apartment. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Was that important to do, and if so, why was it important to do?
It's important for thoroughness. It's also important because it was a lot of what he did. It would be silly to leave out exploring that. It was a big deal. That's why I explored it, because it was a big deal around the time of these events, and it had to do with these events.
Does it impact your thought process as you begin to formulate your opinion about whether or not he could form the intent to murder after deliberation, to act knowingly, to form all those culpable mental states?
It appears to me that he was doing it as a way to make his shootings more effective, that is, to divert the police, that sort of thing, and that his setting up what he calls incendiary devices, and I do too, by the way, was a rational thing to do, whether or not they were destined to work, whether or not he was an expert at setting up incendiary devices or something like that. As a matter of fact, we heard him say that there was one scenario in which it would work. He didn't think it would work, but it might. And we talked about what would happen if that happened. The rest of it was, it doesn't have to actually catch fire in order to divert the police. The whole line of thought seems rational to me in the sense of planning to effectively carry out a crime. Whether it's good planning or not may be another matter. I don't know much about incendiary devices or whether they'll work or not. But it's a rational way to plan to do a crime.
Whose idea was it to set up the apartment with these incendiaries or explosives or whatever you want to call them? Who came up with that idea?
He did, as far as I know.
And was he the one that researched it and figured out how to do it?
Yes.
Did he tell you, 2 years after the fact, he tells you, boy, I'm not really sure this is going to work. Did he tell you why it is he didn't use fake gas, fake napalm, fake gunpowder, fake bullets, any of the fake fuses? Did he tell you any of that?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
We didn't discuss it. I didn't ask.
Did he talk to you about why he dumped gasoline into the carpet if he didn't think it would work?
I didn't ask specifically about that, and he didn't volunteer it.
Did he volunteer anything about why he used air fresheners by the front door?
I didn't ask about it. As a matter of fact, that slipped my mind. I'm not aware of it, but he didn't bring it up with me.
He talked to you about not testing the overall explosives or incendiaries, but he does tell you he did test something he thought he could test safely. What was it?
He said in the videos that he tested a fuse. I believe he also tested gunpowder or the potassium permanganate in glycerin. I'm not absolutely certain of that. So he tested a little bit of stuff, not a lot. And once again, I'm not an incendiary explosive expert.
And I'm only asking about what he said to you or what he didn't say. In the discussion of his apartment and setting it up, whether it's now or in a future video, does he ever say to you why he just didn't leave all the lights on so everyone could see as soon as they opened the door what was on the floor?
I wasn't aware, at least as I talked with him and didn't ask, he didn't volunteer it.
One thing you did ask him about was whether or not he was being controlled by a master power or some other outside force. First, what's the significance of that?
As I'm looking for significant psychiatric problems, as I'm looking for ways that something psychiatric might be a factor in whether he understands or has the capacity, the ability to know what he's doing and to create a crime. As I'm looking for that, the idea that something's controlling me is a common theme in severely mentally ill people who really can't control their actions or have good reason, not logical reason for you and I, but good reason in their heads to carry it out and are prevented from being capable of creating the elements of the crime. In this case, he continuously denied to me that there was any external force, wasn't God, wasn't Satan, wasn't an external power or something like this. This was him, and it would be an inference on my part to say he was taking responsibility for it, but that's essentially what he said.
Do you recall in the defendant's psychiatrist report her indication in your preparation for this interview that the defendant told her that he was being controlled by a master power?
I recall some things like that, yes.
I'm going to object. May we approach?
All right, you may proceed.
Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection, but you may proceed as we talked about at the bench. Go
Yes,
ahead.
sir. Did you specifically ask the defendant about the phrase master power? Do you recall that?
I believe I did. If it's in the video, I did. If it's not in the video, then I stand corrected.
And did you find any evidence in this clip or any other that the defendant was suggesting that he was being controlled by a master power or any other kind of power?
None at all, except something that came from within him.
There's a discussion with him where he suggests at one point in some way a voice from, and I can't remember what part of his life, but a voice telling him to kill people. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And why did you spend the efforts you did to try to clarify what that voice is? Bless you.
I wanted very much to know whether that word voice referred to an hallucination or something else associated with severe mental illness. And as you all saw, I believe, what we clarified was that it was the voice of a thought inside his head, and not a voice in the sense of something associated with mental illness.
He says to you at one point, I never thought about the consequences. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Tell me why that was important, and what did you discover in this segment that dealt with his consideration of the consequences?
I'm not sure never thinking about the consequences is the important part of it for me as I sit here.
Well, just tell us what the important part is then.
I'm thinking about him not considering the consequences to other people, certainly. He said several times that 2 years before, and I kind of want to keep reminding people of that, he didn't plan beyond the shootings themselves. He talked about, although he did have the first aid kit and the road stars in his car. By the way, let me just say what road stars are in case people don't know. They're the things that you see in movies on TV that you throw out on the road.
I'm going to object to this as beyond the scope of his expertise.
Sustained.
It's okay, and we've already seen
Okay.
it, so you can go ahead.
He, see if I can put my thoughts back together here. The only way that I recall that he thought about a future after the shootings was that he wouldn't have to worry about any life conflicts or very much else. Things would be taken care of for him. Either he would be dead or he would be in jail or prison where things are taken care of for you, and I believe that's what he meant by that. That speaks to me of how uncomfortable he was in general about living in the world. I think that speaks to the presence of some sort of mental illness that makes the world outside, most of the world outside, uncomfortable for him. I think that was genuinely difficult.
Everything that we discussed, that you discussed with him in this segment, covered everything from the points that he got for killing people, through the apartment, through the discussion of escape, indifference, impersonal, all that stuff. Tell me, did that change your thought on whether or not the defendant has the capacity at the time to know right from wrong under the terms described by the court?
No, it didn't change a thing.
Did it change anything about the defendant's capacity to form the intent to murder after deliberation or to act knowingly? Any of those culpable mental states?
Not in my opinion, and as I pointed out, this examination and his responses, excuse me, within this examination were part of what led me to the conclusions that I've expressed about those capabilities.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
At least not for now, right?
Yeah, on this segment.
Okay, all right. Members of the jury, we're going to go ahead and take our afternoon break. So please make sure you follow all my advisements during the break. Let's take 20 minutes. Thank you. record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Everyone may be seated. All right, let's go on break for 20 minutes, folks. The court will be in recess. Thank you.
Please rise.